Hey everyone, so today we're diving into a hidden epidemic, one that has quietly become the #1 killer in the world's most populated region. And no, it's not a virus. It's something many of us deal with every single day. We're going to break down the massive plan to fight it and, build a healthier future for billions. Let's get right into it. Right. So, when you hear the word epidemic, your mind probably jumps straight to some fast-spreading virus. But this is different. This is a quiet crisis that's kind of woven into the fabric of our modern lives, and the World Health Organization is sounding a major alarm. It's not about some new bug, it's about the diseases that have become the main reason most people die. 87%. Just let that number sink in for a second. That's the huge chunk of all deaths in the Western Pacific that are caused by what experts call non-communicable diseases, or NCDs. You know them: heart disease, cancer, diabetes. This isn't just a problem anymore. The data shows it's now the health challenge of our time. So, to really get our heads around this, we need to dig into the data behind what the WHO is calling this deadly epidemic. This chart really shows you the massive shift that's happened. For decades, the whole world was focused on fighting infectious diseases, and we got pretty good at it. But while we were doing that, NCDs just quietly grew into this enormous burden. The data is crystal clear. 7 out of the top 10 causes of death are now NCDs. The things that threaten our health have completely changed. Now, this slide tells a really powerful story about inequality. Check this out. In Kiribati, a person has about a 51% chance of dying way too early from one of these diseases, but in the Republic of Korea, that number plummets to just 7%. This isn't just about health, it's about fairness. Where you happen to live dramatically changes your odds of living a long, healthy life. And here is the real alarm bell. Any progress we were making against NCDs has basically ground to a halt. In fact, major risk factors like obesity are actually getting worse in a lot of places. It's a huge signal that our old business-as-usual approach just isn't cutting it anymore. We need a fundamental rethink, and we need it like yesterday. Okay, so if the old way isn't working, what's the new plan? Well, this gets us to the absolute core idea behind the WHO's new framework, a huge shift in how we even think about health. So think about it like this. On the left, you've got the sick system. It's totally reactive. It basically waits for us to get sick, then it swoops in to try and fix us, usually one disease at a time. The vision for the future, over on the right, is a health system. It's proactive. The whole point is to stop people from getting sick in the first place by building societies that make it easy to be healthy. And to build that health system, we have to look way beyond hospitals and clinics. We have to tackle what are called the social determinants of health. This is all the stuff in your life, where you live, the air you breathe, your job, your education, that are often the real, deep-down root causes of these diseases. It's about fixing the causes of the causes. Okay, so this sounds good, but how do we actually build this new health system? Well, the WHO has laid out a super clear 5-point action plan. Let's walk through it. And here it is, the roadmap. It all starts with a solid foundation of better data. That data then tells us how to enable healthier environments. Then we get into the practical stuff, screening early for diseases, beefing up primary care, your local clinic, and then a really crucial step, empowering people to take charge of their own health. These first two are the bedrock. Strengthened data just means we use information smartly to figure out who's most at risk and which policies actually work. And enable healthy environments, that's about getting everyone involved. City planners creating parks and bike lanes, schools making sure kids have healthy food. It's about making the healthy choice the easy choice. The next 2 points bring the focus right to healthcare. First up is screening, catching things like high blood pressure early when it's much easier to deal with. And second is making primary care, your local doctor's office, the real hub for your health, moving it beyond just treating you when you're sick to actually helping you stay well. And the final piece of this whole puzzle? It's you. It's us. Empowering patients is all about improving health literacy so we can all make better decisions. It also means ditching the generic, one-size-fits-all advice and giving people personalized guidance that actually fits their life. Okay, so an action plan is great, but it needs some horsepower to actually get moving. So the framework points to 4 key drivers that are going to be the engines for this whole transformation. So what's the fuel for this plan? First, coordination, because health isn't just a job for the health ministry, right? It's about transportation, building bike lanes, and education, making school lunches healthy. Second, financing. We need smart, sustainable ways to pay for all this. Third, making sure our policies are based on evidence, not just guesses. And finally, community engagement. Because, let's be real, none of this works if people on the ground aren't involved. So what does this actually look like in the real world? The WHO has these things they call best buys. Basically, simple, proven, and incredibly cheap ways to make a huge difference. We're talking about things like higher taxes on tobacco and alcohol, getting food companies to use less salt, or running vaccination programs. These aren't just little tweaks, they're some of the most powerful tools a country has to improve its health and its economy. All right, now for the last and maybe the most important part. How do we actually make this all happen? The framework suggests a new, much more flexible way of doing things. This isn't about creating some massive 10-year plan that just collects dust on a shelf. The approach here is way smarter. It's try, learn, and improve. You start with a big goal, sure, but then you test small ideas. You find those quick wins. You track what's actually working on the ground, you change your strategy based on that feedback, and then you scale up what's successful. It's a much more agile, real-world way to get things done. And at the end of the day, this is what it's all about. This is the vision. It's not just about adding more years to our lives, but adding more life to our years, freeing people from the weight of diseases that we absolutely know how to prevent. This is the world that a health system is trying to build. Which, brings it all back to us. This isn't just a job for the WHO or for governments. Turning a sick society into a healthy one has to happen at every level, from big national policies all the way down to our own daily choices. So the question for all of us is, what's one small thing we can do to be part of the solution? Thanks so much for joining me.